We're going to keep rolling, and I promise I will eventually leave the stage, but not yet. You heard earlier that we have these two terrific partners for this event that help us think it through, help us organize some of the sessions, and help us really increasingly be partners in more than just this event in a lot of ways. And the Sustainability Consortium is been right at the forefront of that for us and for an increasing number of you. So we're going to have a conversation about that. Please join me in welcoming the CEO, Sheila Boini. Hi, Sheila.
Hi, Joel. Welcome. So nice to see you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So we have every year at this event done sort of a periodic check-in with the CEO of the consortium. You've been on the job since like September?
September.
Yeah. And so this is your first outing here. We welcome you. Well, I think, one of the things from our perspective is that TSC has been a little bit of a moving target about what it is. I know, except that we know it's about metrics, right? I can say that it's about developing metrics for products. Is that the elevator pitch? Is that what it is?
I mean, that is one way to say it, but I guess the way I think of it is what we're doing with the consumer products. We're trying to drive more sustainable consumer products all the way across the life cycle. But when I think about what is it we're doing, we're developing metrics, but I think what we're doing is we're essentially trying to get the right questions asked at the top of the supply chain, so retailers and purchasers, to ask the right questions and then have that cascade down the supply chain to the places where the impacts happen so that we can start to change behaviors and practices. Because metrics in and of themselves, they're only useful if they start to drive change. So when I think about what we do, yes, it's metrics, but I think it's a matter of asking questions and changing behaviors and practices.
Let's step back a little bit and talk a little about you. You came here to TSC from McKinsey. Why? But also, just what did you see? What's the opportunity that you saw that excited you to leave this great company?
So yes, I was with McKinsey for 15 years. I spent the last 10 years working on sustainability, although originally we called it business and society. We worked on climate change. Eventually we got around to calling it sustainability. I think the reason why I come to the consortium, so first of all, I was familiar with consortium, having worked with them about 3 years back and helped in driving part of the underlying strategy that today is the consortium. But I think what's really exciting, and I have to really compliment the team and my predecessor in getting the consortium to where it is now. But the consortium, as you say, about metrics, well, the consortium has built a pretty incredible set of metrics. Today, the metrics that we cover about 60 to 80% of the impacts of consumer products. So we have a very, very robust set of metrics. The metrics are based on science. There's a huge amount of work underlying them. And then we have a multi-stakeholder organization. So all of the metrics are vetted through that multi-stakeholder process to make them practical, to make them usable. So we have this amazing asset, which is, as you say, the metrics. But for us, it's about the impact. So in order to drive impact, that means the next sort of phase for us has to do with getting these metrics implemented. And getting them implemented means a couple things. On the one hand, there's getting retailers and purchasers to use them. Because if you all have the same set of metrics across that first set of questions, you're asking the same questions, you're focusing on the same issues. So our metrics try to really get down to what are the few hot spots and then what should be done. If we're all asking the questions and focusing on those same hot spots, we will have efficiency. So we'll have focus on the right areas. But the other thing is, if we have one system, we start to get away from, well, the negative thing of fragmentation of metrics is it drives cost. It drives cost in that everybody's busy answering lots of questions, survey fatigue, we've all heard it, right? So that's a big part of what we're trying to do, get the harmonization, get everybody asking the same questions. It may mean we have to change our questions, right? If we want to make a set of questions that all retailers can use, drive down the question. So that's one big part that enables us to do, which is now we can go out there. We have a great system. We work with SAP to make it available. It's really user-friendly. So we need to do that. And that's exciting. That's really exciting. But the other part of implementation and impact is going down supply chains. It's making sure that our questions actually are changing practices down in the supply chain. So in order to do that, the consortium, we cover the breadth of consumer products. So we're covering food, bev, and agriculture, electronics, you name it, right? A TV, a loaf of bread, we cover it. And we also cover all the impacts. So all the normal environmental ones we're used to, greenhouse gas and water, et cetera. But we cover also social issues, so labor and human rights issues, and animal welfare, right? And human health. So we're covering this incredible breadth. So we can't possibly go deep. So we need to collaborate with and work with organizations that do go deep, like the Sustainable Apparel Coalition for apparel. And we do that across sectors, or organizations that really focus on an issue, like Carbon Disclosure Project. So we need to work with all these other organizations. So for me, another big part of this is that ecosystem, and trying to figure out how we can seamlessly move up and down sectors and across.
So let's talk about how this happens at the retailer end, because first of all, I think everybody knows that the TSC was, that Walmart was one of the drivers at the beginning. What other retailers have engaged, and how are they, as retailers, what do they want in terms of the impacts? Is it going to be seen, is it primarily in the buyer end, or the purchasers at those retailers? What are they looking for?
So I think it's a good question. We have been working with Walmart, and they've rolled it out into their sustainability index. But we have actually a very active retail working group within the consortium. And a couple of our retailers are piloting. So Ahold in the Netherlands is a retailer who has been working over the past couple years on a major implementation project to use the metrics and to work with their buyers, with their suppliers. And they're going to be piloting this. They're mostly looking at food, bev, and ag as their pilot. And that's really exciting. Kroger is piloting this year one of our product categories. That's also really exciting. And others are essentially warming up. We've got a couple other commitments. We're working with the Consumer Goods Forum, and a number we're in conversations about a pilot of multiple retailers. And then in Europe, a number of retailers who aren't members, but are all going to be doing a pilot. So we haven't confirmed exactly who's in it, but it's a fairly large group of European retailers.
And how do you decide what topics? Because you said you're moving into animal welfare and I think labor practices. Is that being driven by, or who's driving that expansion of the topics?
I'd say it's not so much expansion, because I think it's been the consortium's view always to cover all the impacts. So I think it really depends on the products. What are the key issues that come up that are material? And we have in our process, basically we come up with all the scientific research, and then we have a methodology for determining if something is material, essentially. And that's how we come up with the underlying sort of set of what we call hotspots, so the key areas to focus on. And it's really coming first from the underlying science and academic papers, and then from our stakeholders, our members, and then also we invite experts as well.
What have you learned about collaboration and all this? Because you're really sort of the ultimate collaboration and across all these CPGs, a lot of their suppliers, the resins and packaging and other companies, and the retailers, and then of course the academics that are involved with this. That's a hell of a collaboration project. What have you learned about making that work?
I'd say collaboration is hard. First of all, I think we start within the consortium. We have to do a lot of collaboration, because we have the academics, and we have the NGOs, and we have the companies, but the corporates aren't just, corporates all have one view. You have retailers, and then you have suppliers, they're manufacturers, and then you have players further back in the supply chain. And everybody has their own agenda. Everybody wants the same big idea, right? We're driving product level sustainability, but they all have different ways of getting there. So first we have to drive that collaboration among our members. What we're entering into and what we've been doing is not only that, but now we have to collaborate with these other organizations. And I think our view is we do not want to recreate the wheel. We want to work with others. If they've got a wheel, let's see if we can't make it work with ours. Can we adjust? Can we make it work? But that's hard. Collaboration takes time, energy, resources. But we think it's necessary because our vision is that we have this efficiency and harmonization so that instead of spending a huge amount of time on metrics, right, everybody's spending time on impact. And that's kind of part of the vision behind why you do metrics, so that you can enable the impact.
What do you want to see happen faster? What's frustrating you that you just want to get something done and out there more?
I guess I'd like to see, there's a lot of resistance to why do you want to do this. So I'd like to see supply chains.
Resistance from where?
So if you start at the top of the supply chain and you say, okay, I'm going to ask you a metric on carbon, or I'm going to ask you a metric on animal welfare, what I'd like is the conversation to happen faster, to engage, instead of we're not going to answer your question, or why are you asking this question? So I guess there's a piece of it that it's naturally hard. Everybody has different agendas. And if you want to work collaboratively on things, you have to eventually get to a point of trust. And I'd like that to happen faster, right? I think that if the retailers want to work with the manufacturers and there's some trust that they're collaborating to work together, and then similarly all the way down the supply chain. So for me, trust that would enable collaboration.
Before we get to questions, you've got a lot of tools that you've developed and resources. Do you have to be a member? Because membership ain't cheap at TSE, but do you have to be a member to get access to these?
Well, this is another reason why it's a nice era for us. We're now making our tools more available. So as you know, Walmart has rolled out their index. So our toolkits, our 110 toolkits covering 60-80% of product category impacts are now available through SAP on the Product Sustainability Network. And suppliers and manufacturers, retailers can get access through that way very inexpensively. We're also going to try to make more things available through our website so that you could buy our toolkits. The other thing that's new and very exciting is we've developed something called the Sustainability Insights. So what we've tried to do is, our metrics are technical. You look at it and your eyes glaze over, right, if you're not a technical sustainability professional. So we've tried to create some kind of summaries on products. So if you go to our website on the product gallery, you can go and click and you'd say, okay, beef. And you'll find out what are the key impacts in beef and what good manufacturers are those, what practices they undertake. So we're starting to make it more accessible.
Yeah, good. Lauren?
Yeah, we've gotten a few questions about the role that technology might be able to play in this idea of setting standards. Specifically, is there anything that TSC has experimented with in terms of open source standards, or any interesting initiatives you see others working on in that area?
Yeah, are you creating open source data sets on given products? The impacts and
I think that was the original vision when we first started, and we've really struggled with it. I think making our products now available at actually a very low cost is kind of a baby step towards open source. We'd love to get there. Right now, we are pricing our metrics so that there's a small licensing fee. I think it would be a future vision. It was kind of part of the founding vision, but wasn't something that we could actually build.
Yeah.
But I could see us moving that direction.
Yeah. But open source isn't just free. Open source is the underlying data sets and the framework so that people can build things on top of that. That seems like a high leverage opportunity.
Oh yeah, no, if you mean it in that way, then it is, and we're very open with our collaborators, right, who not necessarily members, because what we'd like to get to is harmonization and that kind of seamless flow of kind of plug and play. So that's very much our vision. I think there's so much in the consortium, in terms of our IP and everything. So we make all of that available to members, and then with our collaborators, of course.
So it's kind of open source, but you kind of have to pay. We'll have to work that out exactly how to frame that, because I think it's a little confusing. But what are your metrics for success? We look at how do you judge yourself? Is it the number of products? Is it in tons and pounds and square yards? Or what is?
It's a really good question, because I think we're now changing. In fact, we had a dashboard that we used to give to our board, and the dashboard had the number of product categories that we covered, which then you could translate into, we're covering the impacts of products. But that was metrics, right? So we were counting, do we have metrics covered? And now we're at a stage where we're going to be able to look at impact. So our metrics are now quantitative, and we're going to be able to see year over year, when we look at the summary of the results, the impact that we're having or not. So we're going to now be able to hold ourselves accountable to metrics that are much more around impact. I think also around implementation, so more retailers using our metrics. And then also some of our work is very much seeing what's happening, like at the factory level or at the farm level. So our metrics now going forward are going to be very much around the impact. And I think it was interesting, your talk earlier today, because you were talking about supply chains. And it's these kinds of metrics that are going to be able to have that visibility of, are we getting progress in the supply chains?
Great. Well, we're really excited that you bring the McKinsey view and your great experience in sustainability over so many years to this effort, and it continues to be, the Sustainability Consortium continues to be a great thing to watch. So thank you for being here, and please join me in thanking Sheila.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you.